The homeless black man arrived at the wedding, but when the groom saw him, something shocking unfolded. The church was breathtaking, with cream-colored walls glowing softly beneath chandeliers, sunlight pouring through stained glass windows, bathing the aisle in warm golden hues. Rows of white roses lined every pew, and a string quartet played softly in the background, the air heavy with anticipation. Julia Anders stood just beyond the entrance in her bridal gown, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her bouquet. Everyone said she looked like a dream, yet her mind raced, not with doubt, but with memories, faces, moments, small things that had slipped into the cracks before a life-changing promise. Today, she was marrying Daniel Whitmore, the son of a real estate magnate, handsome, polished, from a world of yacht parties, charity galas, and custom suits. He had proposed under the Eiffel Tower. Everyone said they were a perfect match. So why did her chest feel so tight? As the music shifted, the signal for the guests to turn in their seats. Cameras lifted. The doors opened, yet before Julia could take a step, a murmur rippled through the church. Someone was walking down the aisle, but it wasn't her. A man, thin, bearded, dark-skinned, with graying, unkempt hair, his clothes loosely hanging. Dusty, worn, he walked slowly but with purpose, eyes fixed ahead. Some guests whispered. Others recoiled as the ushers moved forward. But Julia stepped out from the side and gasped, her voice trembling. "Elijah!" The man looked at her and gave a gentle nod. For a moment, the entire room was silent. Julia hadn't seen him in nearly 7 years. Back in college, she used to pass him every morning. He sat near the bookstore, always quiet, never asking for anything. While others hurried past or looked away, she had once sat beside him, handed him a peanut butter sandwich. He smiled and said, "Thank you," then disappeared. She never forgot his eyes. And now, he was here. Daniel stood at the altar, frozen, his jaw clenched. "Elijah," he muttered, barely audible, his voice tight and defensive. Julia looked back and forth between them. "You know him?" she asked. Daniel's lips parted. "He's nobody," he said quickly. He must be confused. Elijah stopped mid-aisle and from inside his jacket pocket pulled out a folded photograph. His fingers trembled slightly as he unfolded it, revealing a crinkled image held high enough for Julia to see that showed her smiling in jeans and a university hoodie, sitting on a stone bench beside Elijah, in her hand, a sandwich, in his, a card, beneath it, carefully taped, was that very card Julia remembered writing. "You matter, stay strong." Julia. A lump rose in her throat. She had forgotten the exact words. But he hadn't. The guests watched in stunned silence. No one knew what to say. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low and firm. "You need to leave now." But Elijah's eyes didn't flinch. He turned his gaze to Julia. "I didn't come to ruin anything," he said quietly. "I came to tell the truth." That's when Daniel snapped. "That's enough." He barked. "He's delusional. Someone get him out." Julia interrupted. "Let him speak." Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. Daniel looked at her, as if she had lost her mind, but she kept her eyes on Elijah. Elijah stepped closer, but not too close, just enough to be heard. "Years ago," he began, "I wasn't always homeless. I had a job, a home, a small life, but it was mine." He swallowed hard. Then one night, a group of college boys came laughing, recording. One offered me food, another money. I thought it was kindness. Julia's heart stopped. Elijah looked down. They poured beer on me, made me dance, mocked me, filmed it, saying it was an experiment. It went viral. I lost my job the next week. My landlord kicked me out. No one cared what happened after that. He finally looked at Daniel. You were one of them. The room went silent. Julia's eyes widened. She turned to Daniel. Is that true? She asked. Daniel looked around. Faces staring. Breath held. He forced a laugh. Of course not. He's making this up. You believe this? It's our wedding. Julia. But Julia wasn't smiling. She was staring. Remembering. Thinking, and Daniel knew it. Elijah, she said softly. Why come now? The man looked at her. Eyes tired but sincere. Because I saw your photo in the paper. And I remember the kindness you gave me. And when no one else did, I didn't come for revenge. I came to make sure the girl who saw me once could see clearly again. Julia didn't say anything. She simply looked at the man beside her, the man she was supposed to marry, whose face was now tight with fear. She held up the car Elijah had brought and whispered, You kept this all these years. But he couldn't even keep his conscience. The silence inside the church grew louder than any thunderstorm. Daniel stood at the altar, fists clenched, jaw tight, eyes darting from guest to guest. His perfectly pressed tuxedo seemed smaller somehow, like it no longer fit. Julia didn't speak at first. She was still holding the card. Her own handwriting faded with time. Carried by a man most wouldn't look at twice. She traced her thumb over the faded ink. You kept this, she said again, barely above a whisper. Elijah gave a simple nod. Daniel stepped closer to her. Julia, don't let him ruin this. He's lying. He's just trying to sabotage us. She looked at him, not with anger, but with a quiet ache. No, Daniel, she said gently. He's trying to protect me. The room shifted. The guests, one stunned into stillness, leaned in. Some exchanged glances. Others whispered. Everyone could feel it. The weight of truth pressing down on every breath. You told me you volunteered in college, Julia said, her voice trembling, that you served food to the homeless, donated winter coats. Daniel quickly interrupted. I did. You told me you respected people. You told me you'd never treat anyone as if they were beneath you. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. Elijah didn't interrupt. He simply stood there, grounded. Julia turned back toward him. Elijah, what happened to you because of that video? Did anyone ever apologize? He shook his head slowly. No one ever came back. They laughed. They walked away. And I was left to carry their choices. Her throat tightened. And you, when you saw my photo in the paper, you came here not to humiliate, but to warn me. I came because you were the only one who ever looked at me like I was a person. Daniel's voice cracked with frustration. This is ridiculous. You don't even know this man. But Julia's voice was soft. I know you now, she said. Daniel froze. And suddenly, something shifted in Julia's posture. She stood taller. Her eyes clearer. She turned toward the pastor. I need a moment. Then to the guests. I'm sorry. I know this is hard to watch. Believe me, it's even harder to feel. She looked at her parents. Then at Daniel's, who were visibly distressed but silent. I've spent the last year planning this wedding. Perfect invitations. Perfect decorations. Perfect photos. But none of it means anything if the man standing beside me doesn't understand the value of a human life. She looked at Daniel. I was ready to build a life with you. But if you could do something like that, if you could be part of something so cruel and hide it for years, then I don't know who you are anymore. She turned to Elijah. You may not have anything, she said, but today you gave me everything I needed. The guests were stunned as Julia stepped down from the altar, not toward Daniel, but toward Elijah. She placed the card in his hand. Keep it, she whispered. You reminded me of who I am. Then she turned back to the crowd. This wedding is over. Gasps filled the air. One guest began to clap slowly. Others joined in. It was quiet, respectful, not loud or theatrical. Julia didn't cry. She didn't run. She walked out of the church with her head held high, the train of her dress trailing behind her like a flag of freedom. Elijah stayed behind, unsure whether to follow. But at the church doors, she turned to him. "Come with me," she said. They sat on the church steps as sunlight filtered through the clouds. Guests quietly exited. Julia kicked off her heels. Elijah looked down at his worn shoes. Embarrassed. "I didn't mean to cause a scene," she said. She shook her head. "You didn't cause anything. You revealed everything." They sat in silence for a long moment. "Do you have anywhere to stay?" she asked finally. Elijah shrugged. "There's a shelter across town. I'll go back there." She reached into her small clutch purse and pulled out her phone. "You're not going back there," she said, dialing someone. "You're coming to my friend Marta's community center. She helps people get back on their feet. You deserve a fresh start." He looked at her, unsure. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "Because you protected me," she said. "And because I remember what I wrote on that card." She smiled. "You matter." Over the following months, Julia transformed her life. She left behind the image of perfection and leaned into something deeper, truth. She volunteered, rebuilt friendships, stayed in touch with Elijah, who, thanks to help from the community center, eventually found housing and started working part-time at a nonprofit supporting at-risk youth. 1 year later, Elijah sent her a photo. He was smiling, standing beside a young man he had mentored, holding a card with familiar handwriting. "You matter. Stay strong." Julia. Julia never married that day, but she gained something else: clarity, courage, a friend, and a reminder that the most important vows are the ones we make to ourselves and the kind of people we choose to believe in. Sometimes, the person walking in from the cold isn't there to ruin your life. They're there to save it. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.